there, I'm here with Rebekah Meier, and she has a banner for us. Now, this is not normally what I think of as a banner, Rebekah, because it looks to me like a canvas or something square.
It is. Thank you for having me. And it is. It's a 9x12 banner that we're going to decorate, collage style.
Cool. Let's get it on collage style.
Okay, what we're going to start with is a double-sided fusible web. And what that is that it has sticky on both sides.
But when you say it's a fusible web, it usually needs to be heat activated.
Yes, yes, yes. So I'm going to peel off one film from one side.
So that's a protective paper.
And then I'm going to take the fusible web and press it onto the back, the wrong side of my tissue paper.
It's funny, I never think of using fusible web with tissue paper. I always think of it as using it with fabric only.
Right, well, I like to use it with paper because then I don't have to worry about glue and sewing through glue. So fusible web is made for fabric, therefore I can
sew through it really comfortably. So then you just went ahead and ironed it on. That melted basically the adhesive in it.
Yes.
Okay.
And what you end up with is a sheet that looks like this.
Cool.
So it's all fused.
And you've obviously trimmed it down too, I noticed.
I did.
Okay.
I did. So it's the exact same size as the banner. So I'm going to mix some white paint diluted with water.
And this is just white, like acrylic craft paint or something. And why are you mixing it with water? Why is that important?
To dilute it. So I don't want to cover up my tissue paper design. So this way, what it does two things. It seals it up, so it'll make it easier for paint application.
Right.
And it also mutes it a little bit. So it's sealing it, muting it, making it ready for paint.
So you're doing many things at the same time, which I like. And I see the finished dried result is gorgeous.
Yes, yes. So at this point, once the whitewash is dry, I'm going to wet my brush or a foam square, and then I'm just going to add some paint.
And again, you're using a really thin wash because I notice I can see the text and the design through the tissue because you're using a very thin acrylic paint, and I notice you keep dipping into water.
And the white underneath is dry, so that's just tissue's fragile, so that just gives it a little bit more stability. And
cool.
So I'm going to go ahead and paint that up, and what I end up with is something that looks like this. I'm going to pull off the remaining fusible from the back.
Oh, I forgot that we had the fusible on there. Okay, so you're gonna go ahead, just to make sure that I'm totally clear so I can do this project.
Yes.
You're gonna pull that off. We have our blank banner, which you're gonna go ahead and you would just use an iron once this was
just
dry,
like I did
obviously, to do it. Now, would you use a pressing sheet because this has paint on it?
I would. Parchment paper, some kind of.
So it's gonna end up like this, and now I notice there are a couple differences, one of which is, look at all this stitching.
Yes.
And we're actually gonna go to the sewing machine and you're gonna finish up the stitching for us, right?
Yes.
Now, one of the things that I like so much about the stitching is that it is both practical and it adds that extra little texture, would you say? Design,
texture,
something like that?
design, you know, it holds, reinforces the paper to the banner. You know, it's already fused, but giving it also a little bit more
and it finishes the edge,
design,
and you're now using a zigzag stitch, which is one of the built-in designs of the machine.
Yes, and you could use any kind of decorative stitch
and I have this for you because I know you told me that you like to add some little fabric strips, and I know you normally would fuse a strip like this into place before you stitched it, but you've told me that you're just gonna go ahead and be wild and crazy, lady.
Wild and crazy.
Stitch it right on there. Because again, like as you have said a million times to me, and I think is so true, collage has absolutely no rules.
Exactly, and that applies to the stitching as well.
So now you're switching stitches, right? You were on a zigzag?
Well, I'm still going to use a zigzag.
Ooh.
And it's kind of cool, Julie, because I didn't glue this down, and that's just going to give a little bit more of a layer because it's, you know, the edges are completely
I was going to say, I like
down.
it when you see that dimension and texture of all the layers. Cool. So now you've used a zigzag to put it down. I always think of having to put things down with a straight stitch. So I like the idea that we can actually use a zigzag to do it.
See, so it's
Yeah,
more
dimensional, and
dimensional.
fun. So what are we going to do to finish it off here?
I'm going to go back to a straight stitch, and I'm going to add just straight lines.
And this is purely decorative, right? There's no actual like reason that we have to do this.
Not at all.
And that's of course the reason that you're using a dark thread as opposed to something that would be like, you know, white, or maybe something that would disappear into it, because we really want to see those stitches.
Right.
Okay, so once you're done adding the decorative stitching, the practical stitching, and all the stitching, I know that we're gonna get messy and painty again.
Yes, we're going to stencil.
Yay! One of my favorite things to do. So we have everything set up already for the stenciling to be done.
Awesome. So we are going to use...
Gonna use a daisy stencil, right?
Yes.
Or is that not a daisy? Is that a different kind of? My flower knowledge is very sad.
Well, it's like an all type of flower.
It's in every flower.
Yes, exactly.
There you go. So you're using an actual stencil brush.
I am.
And some acrylic paint, and you're just dabbing off to make sure that there isn't too much on your brush.
Yes, that's as you know, the key thing with stenciling. You want a dry brush, and what that means is a lot of the paint taken off. Otherwise, it'll go under your stencil.
And you're just gonna pounce up and down, and I notice you start with the border at the outside, and then you work towards the inside, which I think is always a good way to go, because you get kind of a nice natural color gradation if you do that.
Right.
I know you're working with black, and actually if we look at your finished sample for just a second while you're doing that, one of the things I see is that it's not just that you have those beautiful black flowers and of course the text on there too, and stencils are a great way to get text onto your pieces, but you've also added some really cool metallic dots to your stencil.
Yes, yes.
And how did you do that?
That is very simple. I just loaded my dot stamp with off-white ink, and then just covered it and stamped it on.
Super easy.